Well, I think quite a lot of this speculation is probably somewhat misfounded, to be honest, Vanessa. What, of course, is true, both the estimate that the BBC put out and also the one the Sky put out, they said, well, what if people had voted in a general election in the way that they did in the local elections? And both of those projections said, well, the Labour Party would be the largest party, but short of an overall majority. But of course, everybody knows that the Liberal Democrats do better in local elections than they do in general elections. And that therefore you can't really say that that's necessarily what would have happened last Thursday. Now, beyond that, yes, there is some debate, and it depends a little bit about how you look at the evidence as to whether or not the local election results did or did not confirm of the evidence of the opinion poll over recent weeks, which has tended to point to Labour having a sufficient lead that they would indeed get an overall majority. Now, to be honest, I've done the calculation more than one way, and I can get you more than one answer. So there's a degree of uncertainty there. But the honest truth is, the chances of there being a hung parliament have always been pretty high over the course of the last years. But I would suggest to you that actually they're probably somewhat less now than they were 12 months ago. When the Conservatives were 7, 8, 9 points behind in the polls, as they were during the Partygate storm, but before Liz Truss became Prime Minister, we were very, very firmly in hung parliament territory, because the Labour Party does have to be a long way ahead in terms of votes before it can get an overall majority. The electoral system is working against it. But with the Labour Party since Liz Truss having very large double-digit leads in the polls, and also then in Scotland more recently with the SNP falling back, that's actually improved Labour's chances of getting an overall majority. Now, all of that said, of course, things could change. Indeed, we've had one poll out this evening suggesting Liberal Democrats are indeed now doing rather better in polling for Westminster, and then we might be back in hung parliament territory. So the point is, we don't know. So far as what might happen in the wake of a hung parliament, well, it's not very complicated. The Liberal Democrats a long time ago said they would not be willing to allow a Conservative minority administration to remain in office. We know the SNP will not allow a Conservative minority administration to remain in office. Maybe the DUP would, but the relationships between the DUP and the Conservatives are not that good either. In other words, the Conservatives are short of potential allies inside the House of Commons in a way that is not true of Labour. That said, coalition, very unlikely. The Liberal Democrats, once bitten, twice shy. I think they will be deeply reluctant to go into a coalition with Labour, as opposed to perhaps having some understanding whereby they help support a minority Labour government from the backbenches. But frankly, all this has been known for quite a long time. Maybe people are beginning to wake up to it, but this is not really a new development in our politics.
So, John, is it true that you live for these moments? The phrase "hung Parliament" falls trippingly off your tongue. Come on, you love it. You relish these moments. You love it. You love doing the sums about just how many of each and just what the tipping point is and who might make the difference and who might control the country. It's good fun for you, isn't it? Why do you love this so much?
Well, I suppose partly I should declare, Vanessa, many moons ago, back in the 1980s, I did write an academic paper pointing out that the chances of a hung parliament had indeed increased as compared with the post-war period. Now, it took a long time for that to come to fruition, but the truth was, in 2010, we did have a hung parliament.
I know.
We had a coalition, though. Whether it was a coalition of chaos, I'm not sure most Conservatives would agree with that. Then in 2015, yes, David Cameron got an overall majority, but only just. Theresa May tried again in 2017 and failed. It was only in 2019, when Boris Johnson got a very large lead in terms of votes, that he was able to get an overall majority. The truth is, if you really want to know the underlying story, is that our electoral system is now less likely to deliver either of our two largest parties an overall majority. And to that extent, hung parliaments are a potential outcome of any British general election in a way that was not true.
So, Sir John, the king of tactical voting, therefore, is also you. And any minute now you're going to tell me you once in your youth wrote a learned paper and treatise on tactical voting and just how to go about doing it. What do my lovely listeners and vibrant viewers need to know about how to cast the X in the right box to make what they want to come about?
Well, to be honest, Vanessa, that's up to them. I would never tell voters what to do, but obviously, for example, there is some speculation that perhaps people might want to vote tactically against the Conservatives. And in that instance, if you're in a constituency where the Democrats are starting off second, you might think it makes more sense to vote for them. But equally, if you're in a constituency where the Labour Party is second, you might want to vote for them. But equally here, north of the border, Douglas Ross, the Scottish Conservative leader, suggested, well, maybe people want to vote tactically against the SNP, in which case you might want to vote Conservative in constituencies where the Conservatives have a chance of defeating the SNP, etc., etc. It all depends on your motivation. I think the one thing I would say is that one of the interesting things about the local elections, so far as I can see, is that actually it isn't very clear that people were voting tactically